Hello, welcome to the first Fretboard Logic video. I'm Bill Edwards. Now there's a chance that you've been introduced to the method through the Fretboard Logic books, and that's good because they're intended to be used here as companion pieces to the video series. It'll make the learning more thorough, and it'll answer the most frequently asked questions. Plus, I happen to believe it's a more appropriate use of the different media to put patterns and explanations on paper and save the videotape for demonstrating the applications of the concepts. We're not just expecting you to copy everything and then somehow work it into your own playing like with most videos nowadays. So that brings us to one of the main objectives here, which is we want to provide a solid conceptual framework so that you can more fully benefit from other methods and approaches. I think of it like this. If I were learning to fly an airplane, I wouldn't just mimic everything the instructor did and then take off. I think I'd want to understand how a few things worked first. And for the people that don't have access to the books yet, we're going to go over that material before proceeding on to the applications section. Keep in mind it's a series, and as the series progresses, we want to know that you have... Okay, let's do the pitch reference. This first section explores the pattern organization of the fretboard. Now, our overall strategy for teaching involves separating the things that relate to the guitar from those which relate to music per se. Form, pattern, and position are guitar-related terms, and they pertain to us here as tone groupings. Because of the guitar's unique tuning system, 3 specific types of patterns occur on the fret called chord forms, scale forms, and lead patterns. And Volume 1, you'll see the 5 basic chord forms illustrated. Musically, they're all termed chords. A, G, and D. Used in other positions. For example, I'll play the 5 basic. We're going to understand each other. These naming conventions are important. This is a C form in the 5th position. A form, 5th position. And so on. Don't forget, your fingers play the forms, but your ears hear the chords. Now this next section, the caged sequence, end to end, the 5 basic chord forms produce a contiguous sequence. Keep in mind these are the same chord played using 5 different forms. This is the C form in the open position. A form, 3rd position. Form, 5th position. E form, 8th position. G form, 10th position. And back to the C form in the 12th. Okay, naming chords by form and position is a little harder to visualize than the caged sequence, but it's made easier if you keep 3 things. The difference between sharps and flats, and the BC and EF rule. Now the musical alphabet is I, and so forth. At the end of the alphabet you go from G back to A. And the difference in the chord, for example, this is A. If you move up a fret, it becomes A sharp. Simply means that between the letters B and C to C, and E goes straight to F. So we're going to name all the chords using one form, the A form. A, D sharp, E, straight to F, F sharp, G sharp, and back to A. Now we'll get a tighter shot of that. The A form played in different positions. This is an A chord. C sharp, F sharp, and back to A. Okay, let's do that one more time for practice. This time we'll use the E form. Straight to F, G, A sharp, straight to C, D sharp, and back to E. Okay, we're going to name the chord by form and position again, but we're going to do it a little bit differently this time. We're going to count up using the bar finger of the other hand. We're going to count up starting with the letter. Okay, let's do that one more time using an E. Start counting with the sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, and that's a C chord. Points. Number one, there's 5 basic chord forms, C, A, G, E, and D. Described as such. For example, this is a C form in the 3rd position. That's a G form in the 7th position. When laid end to end, the forms sequence. We'll cage C form in the 2nd, E form in the 10th. Okay, number 4. You can name your chord by the form and position, the difference between sharps and flats. E form in the 10th position. Start with the letter of the form and count up a fret at a time. E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. Count them up a fret at a time by moving the form. And we'll do that starting with the C form. C, D, F sharp, G, G sharp. The next section, scale forms, begins on page 15. As with the chord by the tuning. They are also termed the C, A, G, E, and D forms because they correspond pattern-wise with the illustrated on page 15. A form. G form. E form, and the D form. Now let's get a tighter shot of this. Okay, C form again. E form. And the D form. As with the 5 basic chord forms, the scale forms can be played in different positions. A G form in the 7th position. And a D form in the 2nd position. Most of the A form and the E form are referenced or this is the G and the D form in the 2nd position. Okay, the 5 basic scale forms can be played in C, A, G, E, D sequence just like the chord forms. We'll play all the forms E form in the 3rd, C form form in the 7th position. A form in the 10th. And back to again, G form open. E form 3rd. Fifth. C form 7th. And back to G form 12th. Okay, those were all G scales. Now A form in the 3rd. G form 5th. E form. Easy once you've done it for the chords. So I'll play the G scale form in the 5th position, then we'll count up and name it. G, G sharp, A sharp. Now let's do the C form. C, C sharp. Let's do one more. The E form in the 10th position. C, C sharp, D. Now we'll do it again using just the C scale. C form. Second position, D scale. E. Okay, that's it for the second section, scale forms. Let's do a bullet review of the 4 main points with some examples. Number 1, there's 5 basic scale forms. C form, Number 2, they can be used as forms in any position and described as such. Here's an E form in the 3rd position. Number 3, when laid end to end, the 5 basic scale forms produce a contiguous sequence. Now I'm going to sequence all the D. A form, G form 7th, D form, scale from the form and position by counting up as you did with chord forms. For example, here's a C form in the 4th position. Start with a letter of the form. D sharp, that's an E scale. Let's try a G form in the 2nd position. The next section, lead patterns, introduces the 3rd and last distinct pattern type, which occurs as a result of the guitar's tuning. Both of them are scales, but guitaristically, the lead patterns consist of 3 5-note groupings, which are played along the fretboard as opposed to across it, using either a 2-fingered or a 3-fingered. And lead pattern. As with the chord and scale, and described as such. For example, here's lead patterns span the length of the 5 basic scale forms, and when combined together, they count for each note apply here as before. Patterns requires that you associate each one with a particular chord form, and this is illustrated on page 26. Lead pattern 2 is associated with the G chord form. End of the chord form on the same fret as the beginning of the lead pattern. Whatever the name of the chord is, that's the name of the scale. For example, here's lead pattern 1 in the 5th position. End of the chord form on the same fret C, C sharp, D, scale in the 5th position. We associate it with the G chord form. Count up to name that chord. G, G sharp, A. So that would be an A chord, therefore an A scale. Starting in the 5th position. C sharp, D chord. This is a D scale. G group. A chord. This is an A scale. Okay, let's do that one more time from the 3rd position. Lead pattern 1. That's a C chord. So lead pattern 1 in the 3rd position is a C scale. We'll do the G group from the 3rd position. That's a G chord. It's a G scale. Okay, that's it for the 3rd section. Now let's do a bullet review of the 4 main points with some lead patterns. Here's lead pattern 1. In the 5th position. Number 3. So the caged sequence doesn't apply as before. And number 4. To name the scale using the lead patterns, you associate lead pattern 1 with the C chord form and lead pattern 4 to get the name of that scale in the 7th position. G, G sharp, A sharp, B. So lead pattern 2 in the 7th position would be a B scale. Now so if we're going to get anywhere here, we're going to start right off working with lead playing in 3 different styles: blues, rock, and country. Now we lead patterns by just practicing them over and over again. The 3rd stage of fretboard logic uses the metaphor of the Chinese menu to the guitar into columns under subject headings. And then we can choose one from, and this is illustrated on page 3 and then add things to it to build up to something that sounds worth listening to, but without rhythm. Now the first 3 areas of focus are in the air. No trouble recognizing the G scale form and the little note at the end of the phrase. Now it doesn't matter so much where we land. And from the rhythmic materials column, simply means 3 notes per beat. Our first variation is going to be to change the fretboard form. We used the G scale form the first time, now we use the A form in the 10th position. By changing just the form and keeping everything else the same, and that was lead pattern 2. And by doing so, we introduced the anticipation of the changes. Target note was E, now it'll be A. beat, we'll be playing 4. Has been from higher tones to lower. So next we'll change the direction. Okay, those were pause. Next, let's add some strings moving besides just fretting and plucking. Bends, hammer-ons, pull-offs. We're stating the obvious to suggest sleep. In this section, we tried to pick some phrases that we could analyze in terms of the fretboard forms, the tonal materials, and the rhythmic materials. Form with some bends and vibratos, and now we're going to descend using lead pattern 1 with a flat 5 added. We're going to slide back figures, triplets. Ending with bends and vibratos. Back up. Another back up, so we end on the target note of B, and straight back up the blues scale. Instead of analyzing it, we're going to put up some background music. Okay, here might be a good place to distinguish between the subject of lead playing per se and some of the possible applications of the fretboard forms. Right now, what we're trying to do is show the different playing styles. This time, In general, rock tends to be more up-tempo than blues, although the two styles share a lot of the same tonal and rhythmic materials. We've also added another focal point by including distortion in our guitar. Our fretboard form is the C scale form in the third position. Our target note here is the C on the beat, or 16th notes. Okay, in our second phrase, we're utilizing lead pattern 2 in the first position, starting on the C note. And our target note is the high B flat resolving to E flat on the second string bend. Okay, we've also got a tighter shot of that. Okay, in phrase number 3, we're doing some simple bends and pull-offs, like using the C form again. Okay, and close up. Okay, in phrase number 4, rhythms from 4 notes per beat to 3. We're going to introduce a key change from the key of C to the key of A, and we're going to use a G form in the 5th position with some stock rock. Up to the E form. Position. Starts with the G form in the 5th, ends up with the A form in the 3rd. An important step in the process of learning to play lead is using what could be termed discernible rhythmic accentuation, units such as 3s, 4s, and 6s. But it's also worth the effort because they're playing lead instead of just playing scales. So let's close out this section with a solo from... Okay, the next style we're going to tackle is country. So for this, we're going to introduce a new element called tonality orientation, and we're going to change to major for country. Our accompaniment uses the chords E every 4 beats. This is 4 different scale forms. E form, A form. Now G form, descending. Direction with each chord change. Ascending. A form, descending. E form, 10th, ascending. Okay, this time we'll stay in the 12th position, but we'll use lead patterns. String. And the 5th string. Blue note. If you'll remember, we referred to this as a flat 5 before in the minor. Lead pattern 2, open position, 6th string. Four note per beat iterative or repeating phrase. G form, 9th position, descending. And C form. Okay, let's try some combinations of those things. Okay, we're going to start with lead. Again, a 4-note repeating pattern. Marking note of D, we're back to nice long one. Okay, a few more examples and then it's Well, I hope by now you've got the of others and developing our own ideas, determinations, and choices from it. Be aware of the content of what we are playing. Content refers to both quantity and quality. By quantity, we mean the number of different elements of which the music is composed work together in order to achieve the desire to work. We'll be discussing different types. This section includes a few short samples of music.